Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into futures thinking.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, futures
Yeah.
thinking and how it can help us kind of get a grasp on the future of work.
I like it.
Our source material is a lecture chapter
Okay.
that breaks this whole concept down.
Cool.
And I'm really excited to kind of explore it with you.
Yeah, this is a really relevant topic, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially right now,
Uh,
the workplace is just changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
And futures thinking can give us some really useful tools
Yeah.
for dealing with all that uncertainty.
I think one of the things that really caught my eye at the beginning of the lecture
Okay.
was the idea that time
Uh-huh.
isn't as simple as we think.
Right.
You know, we kind of have this image in our mind
Yeah.
of time as this straight line.
Yeah.
It's just ticking away, I don't know,
Okay.
the clock.
Yeah, that's that Chronos time.
Right.
Just linear time.
Yeah.
But then there's also this idea of Kairos time.
Oh.
Those are those kind of big moments, those events
Okay.
that disrupt things and
Right.
kind of reshape everything.
So like,
Like if you land your dream job,
oh yeah.
or there's some major technological breakthrough,
Yeah. Yeah.
or even,
Or in the pandemic.
a global pandemic.
Perfect.
Exactly. Something that really shakes things up.
Right. Totally changes everything.
And one of the things the lecture talks about is how different cultures actually think about time differently too.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, some cultures really emphasize that linear progression,
Uh-huh.
just moving forward on that straight line.
Okay.
While others are much more focused on cyclical patterns or
Wow.
the importance of like the present moment.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and just imagine how those differences
Yeah.
could play out in a workplace, especially,
Right.
in a global team.
Like a global team.
Exactly.
That's a really good point because you think about like deadlines or
Yes.
timelines for projects.
Yeah,
People might be interpreting those
totally differently.
totally differently depending on,
Yeah.
where they come from, their background.
Exactly.
I mean, this is already making me think about how I approach things differently.
I know, right?
So how does this all tie back into futures thinking then?
Well, think about it. If we're stuck in that just linear view of time,
Okay.
we might totally miss those Kairos moments.
Right.
Those turning points.
Yeah.
That could completely change the future of work.
Right.
Futures thinking is all about looking beyond just what we can predict
Okay.
to imagine a whole bunch of different possibilities and
Yeah.
being prepared for all these different scenarios.
So it's not about knowing exactly what the future is.
Right.
It's more about exploring all the different futures that could be.
That's the key. It's not about looking into a crystal ball.
Right.
It's about developing a flexible mindset.
Okay.
Considering different what-if scenarios
Mm-hmm.
and being ready to adapt as things change.
Yeah.
Because the future isn't set in stone. It's something that we can shape,
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lecture even talks about how our brains are already kind of wired
really?
for this kind of thinking.
Okay.
They talk about mental simulation
Dental simulation, yeah.
and counterfactual reasoning.
So what is that? What do those mean?
Well, mental simulation is basically our ability to run these mental movies
Right.
in our heads.
Yeah.
We can imagine different scenarios and kind of play out how they might turn out.
Okay.
And then counterfactual reasoning is kind of like asking, what if I had made a different choice
Oh, okay.
back in the past?
Yeah.
It helps us analyze our past decisions,
Yeah.
spot patterns,
Yeah.
and then use those lessons for future choices.
It's kind of like hindsight is 20/20,
Exactly.
but you're using that to think ahead.
Yeah. Instead of dwelling on the past, you're
Yeah.
using it to make better choices.
Right. Okay.
Moving forward. The lecture even uses that classic marshmallow experiment
yeah.
to illustrate this.
What was that again?
Remember, they gave kids a marshmallow
Oh.
and said, you can eat it now
right.
or wait
Yeah.
and get two later.
Yeah, yeah.
And the kids who could resist eating it right away,
Right.
they ended up showing more success later in life.
That's so interesting.
It highlights the importance of that long-term thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking about the consequences of our choices down the line.
Yeah, I never really connected that to futures thinking before.
It's all connected.
It's a good point.
Yeah, it's about realizing that what seems good right now
Right.
might not be the best strategy in the long run.
Especially in a world that's changing so fast.
Exactly. But here's the thing.
Okay.
The lecture also says that sometimes
Uh-huh.
being too attached to the past
Oh.
can actually hold us back from embracing the future.
That's interesting.
They call this retrotopia.
Retrotopia.
It's that romanticizing the past, holding on to this idealized version of
Yeah.
how things used to be.
I get that.
Yeah, and we see this in the workplace all the time.
Oh, yeah.
People resisting new technologies,
Yeah.
clinging to old ways of doing things,
Right.
a general fear of change.
Yeah, that back in my day kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But change is going to happen.
Right.
And futures thinking helps us be open to it
Okay, yeah.
instead of resisting it.
So the lecture talks about some specific techniques to do that.
Yes, they go into things like counterfactual reflection,
Okay.
black swan analysis,
Mm-hmm.
and this really cool concept called the futures cone.
The futures cone.
We'll get into those more later.
Okay.
But they sound really helpful, like tools that can help us actually thrive in the face of all this change.
I'm intrigued, yeah.
They are. They're all about equipping ourselves with the skills
Yeah.
and the mindset
Right.
to face the unknown
Yeah.
and actually create the future we want.
That's a good point.
So before we went to, I guess, what are we calling it?
I don't know, a break.
A break.
Sure.
We were talking about how futures thinking kind of helps us get ready for change,
Right, right.
to kind of get out of that linear view of time.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned some really interesting tools for doing that.
Yes.
I'm really curious about that futures cone you mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds kind of like, I don't know.
A roadmap.
Yeah, roadmap for the future,
Yeah.
but I don't really get it yet.
It is a kind of roadmap.
Okay.
It's a way to visually map out potential futures.
Okay.
And the lecture breaks it down into these 4 categories.
Right.
Possible, plausible, probable, and preferable futures.
Okay, let's go through those one by one. What do we mean by possible futures?
So possible futures, that's the biggest category.
Okay.
That's where you really let your imagination run wild.
Okay.
Anything that could happen.
Anything.
No matter how crazy it seems now.
So we're talking flying cars,
Yeah.
robots doing our jobs,
Oh.
teleportation to meetings, all that.
Exactly. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible.
I like it.
You know, challenging those assumptions and
Yeah.
just opening our minds to totally new ideas.
That sounds fun, but also maybe a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
How do we go from all those possibilities to something more, I don't know.
Grounded.
Yeah, grounded.
Realistic.
Yeah, realistic.
Well, that's where plausible futures come in.
Okay.
These are the futures that are more, rooted in reality.
Right.
Things that could actually happen based on what we know now.
So like looking at current trends.
Yeah, current
New
trends.
technologies, all that.
Emerging technologies,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So instead of teleportation, maybe we're thinking about how VR is going to change how we work remotely.
Right. That's a good example. Yeah.
It's about taking those possible futures
Uh-huh.
and filtering them through what's actually doable.
Okay, I see.
What makes sense?
And then probable futures.
Yeah.
Is that where we bring in like data analysis and forecasting?
Exactly. Probable futures are all about those existing trends.
Okay.
Looking at the data, historical patterns,
Yeah.
and projecting them into the future.
But, we've seen how even the best predictions can be totally thrown off
Oh,
by
absolutely.
something unexpected,
Yeah.
like a pandemic
Exactly.
or who knows what.
Right, which is why it's so important to consider all those possible futures.
Right.
Not just the ones that seem most likely right now.
Yeah, okay.
Which brings us to, I think, the most interesting category.
Okay.
Preferable futures.
Oh, right.
This is where we get to bring in our own values,
Okay.
our hopes, our dreams.
Yeah, what we want the future to be.
Exactly. What do we want the future of work to look like? What
Yeah.
kind of world do we want to live in?
Okay.
Not just for ourselves, but for future generations.
So like envisioning a future where work is more meaningful,
Yes,
more equitable, more sustainable.
that's it.
A future that reflects our values.
Exactly. So the futures cone isn't just about passively observing what might happen.
Right.
It's about actively shaping the future.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's where scenario planning comes in.
Okay, scenario planning. Tell me more.
So with the futures cone,
Uh,
we can create these different scenarios,
okay.
each one representing a different possible future.
Okay.
And then we can explore what each scenario would mean.
Yeah.
What challenges and opportunities might come up and figure out how to deal with them.
So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure
I like that.
for the future of work.
Exactly.
We can explore all these different paths.
and be prepared for different outcomes.
That's cool.
And the lecture gives some really cool real-world examples
Oh, yeah.
of companies that are already doing this.
Like who?
They mentioned Siemens.
Okay.
They're using futures thinking to get ready for things like automation,
Oh.
robotics, and AI in their workforce.
That makes sense.
They're not just, scared of these technologies. They're thinking about how to use them to benefit everyone.
Smart.
And they're investing a lot in training programs to help their employees adapt because they realize that human skills are still going to be crucial.
Right. So it's not about robots replacing us.
Exactly.
It's about working together.
Humans and robots teaming up.
Yeah, that's reassuring.
In new ways.
What other examples do they talk about?
They also mention Unilever.
Okay.
They're using futures thinking to tackle sustainability and to create a more equitable and inclusive workplace.
I love that they're using it for those kinds of issues, too.
Me too.
It's not just about business.
Right.
It's about making a better world.
Exactly.
And these examples, they kind of highlight that idea of futures literacy.
Yes.
We keep hearing that term.
I know.
But what does it actually mean to be futures literate?
It's about developing the ability to really think about the future critically and creatively.
Okay.
Understanding the forces shaping our world, exploring those different futures, and using all that knowledge to make better decisions.
So it's not just about knowing specific things about the future.
Right.
It's more like a way of thinking.
It's a skill set that you can apply to anything.
Okay.
It's a mindset, approaching the world with curiosity, being adaptable, and open to uncertainty.
This is making me realize that futures thinking is a really practical tool.
Oh, it is.
It can help us in our careers,
Absolutely.
our personal lives,
Totally.
and even help make the world a better place.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
And the more we develop our futures literacy, the better equipped we'll be for whatever the future holds.
So we've talked a lot about futures thinking.
We have.
From different ways of seeing time to that futures cone. It seems like this is really useful for navigating the future of work.
It really is.
But how do we actually use it?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah, the lecture says it's not just for, CEOs and futurists,
That's right.
for everyone.
Absolutely.
But I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I can use it for my own work and career.
Well, remember those preferable futures.
Oh, yeah.
It starts with picturing the future you want.
Okay.
What does your ideal work life look like?
Yeah.
What impact do you want to make?
I like that. It's like setting our own vision.
Exactly.
And then using futures thinking to get there.
To make it happen.
And that might mean learning new skills.
Yeah.
Building connections. Taking some risks.
Right.
Maybe even switching careers entirely.
It's about being proactive.
Okay.
Taking charge of your future.
Instead of just waiting to see what happens.
Exactly. So instead of just hoping for that promotion, you might use futures thinking to figure out what skills you need and then actually go out and develop them.
Be intentional?
Yes. And strategic.
Okay.
And you can use this for all sorts of career decisions, like negotiating a raise or deciding to start your own business.
It's like futures thinking gives us a way to make better choices.
It does.
Weigh the risks and rewards and be more flexible when things change.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the lecture talks about how important it is to be able to anticipate and adapt.
Yeah.
They call that futures literacy.
Right. It's like having a superpower.
Kinda.
Instead of being caught off guard, we can actually navigate those unexpected things.
Exactly.
And even turn them into opportunities.
That's the goal.
Futures thinking helps us embrace change.
Instead of being afraid of it.
The more we use it,
Yeah.
the better we'll be at dealing with the future of work.
It's a practice.
Yeah.
The more you do it.
This has been so insightful.
I agree.
It's not just about knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
It's about creating the future we want.
Shaping it.
Yeah, and realizing that we have a role in that.
Absolutely.
So for everyone listening, start working on your futures literacy now. Picture your ideal future.
Yes.
Explore the possibilities. And use what you learn to make better choices.
In work and life.
Yeah.
And don't forget, the future is always changing.
Right.
So keep revisiting your vision and your plans.
Stay flexible.
Be adaptable.
This has been a really great deep dive into futures thinking.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more,
Yeah.
check out the full lecture.
Got a lot of great info.
Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious about the future.